Last time in Pokemon Reunion, our hero Red had to save the Hoenn region from rampaging titans. And while the Unova region was being taken over by Ghetsis and his goons from Team Plasma, our man in the red cap was once again there to save the day. And when the safety of the entire world was threatened by a man named Cyrus and his gods of time and space, our savior even managed to overcome those. But he couldn't have done it without the help of his fellow friends he met throughout his journey, whether they came from different regions or universes. In the end, it didn't matter because their only goal was taking down Team Coronos. Eventually, our heroes managed to unlock the power to dimensional travel, and this led them to the heart of the evil team base. Unfortunately, they were too late as their boss Spectra already put the final plans into motion, and so they managed to track him down to the Kalos universe where they had to fight Lysander so that Spectra couldn't get a hold of Yveltal's power to destroy the multiverse. Unfortunately, Spectra was able to get his hands on that evil bird anyway, and after facing off with his team full of legendaries against our hero, he managed to bite the dust. Even with this loss, Spectra didn't want to give up, but that's when the Scarlet Queen showed up, and Thanos snapped him out of existence. Now our heroes cower in fear to the power of this mysterious being, and so maybe in this chapter, we'll find out more. A couple of months after these events unfolded, the region's leaders decided to step up, and managed to take care of all the legendary Pokemon that were set free across the world. And so, the Ultra Wormhole phenomenon was gradually beginning to disappear. At least, that's what they thought. I returned my transporter back to Looker, who considered it too dangerous to use, and everybody in the D Squad got thanked by most people aware of the events of the surrounding portals. As for our heroes, Basil has embarked on an intensive training with Blue. Red is taking some time off to finally spend some of it with his mother, and Lilith, well, Lilith was nowhere to be found. She disappeared the day after they returned from their final mission and never returned. Unfortunately, nobody really wanted to talk about the events that happened on that day, as all the members of the D Squad are too afraid of the Scarlet Queen and what she might do. A couple of days later, however, we get called in by a Looker. He says that the portals have stopped appearing and there's only a couple of small ones left that are not too dangerous. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any news on Lilith either, so for now, the D Squad is going to be on the down low, but not being disbanded. He'll call me up if he has a major mission for me, but for now we're just going to head outside and mind our own business. At least, that's what I thought. But after I step one foot out of this building, Everett comes up to me with another problem. He needs to talk to me as fast as possible and tells me to come to his cruiser, who is parked just in front of Bill's house. Once we arrive, there's nothing there until we all of a sudden get beamed up like in a spaceship. He wasn't able to help us out much in our last endeavor because he had other timelines to be in and fix, but he is very shocked that we were able to take down Spectra and congratulates us. But our main mission right now is to look for the Astra fragments that he lost throughout all of the dimensions. There is 7 of those in total. He already has one, which means we have to find 6 more. With the power that he's acquired from this one fragment, we can make 6 trips into other dimensions exactly, but we have to prepare immensely because we have no idea what could be on the other side of those. We could end up anywhere, and I mean anywhere. And in order to fully prepare ourselves, Everett is going to take us on in a battle to see if we can handle it. If you haven't seen the first part of Reunion, this guy basically runs with a Gen 2 beta team of Pokemon that were never released. Obviously, none of them can stand up to the power of the almighty Mewtwo that I've captured, but after we defeat him, he finally realizes that we can definitely take on other universes, but unfortunately, once we enter these other universes, we won't be able to communicate with Everett, so we're on our own. Are you ready to see what the first universe is? Because I surely am. But first, what is this random dragon doing here, you might be asking yourself? Well, that's the sponsor of today's video, Dragon Mania Legends, an awesome dragon simulator game that you can play on the go with your phone or at home on your PC. Just like in Pokemon, you have different types of dragons that you can breed and collect. And if you're a completionist, this game is going to be on your list for a while because there's over 1,000 1,000 of them. But in order to get them to their final form, you're going to have to feed them berries in order to make them stronger, so that you can then use them against other dragon tamers to try and become the very best. And if you're someone that loves organizing and creativity, this island is all you'll ever need, because you can decorate it with special habitats and farms to make it look more alive. You can flex your coolest dragons against your family or friends and make them jealous of your flying lizards. And with fun holiday events around every corner, you're never going to run out of content and fun. So are you waiting for this dragon to eat you, or are you going to enter the world of dragons and claim your welcome gifts for free by downloading the game through the link and use the redeem code ZWIGGO, or scan the QR code on screen right now to get 100,000 gold and 50,000 food and the beautiful golden sentinel dragon. Huge thank you to Gameloft for sponsoring this video, and let's get right back into it. And the first world is immediately one of the most nostalgic ones ever if you've ever played Pokemon Explorers of Time, because we just arrived at Temporal Tower, Dialga's fortress. Unfortunately, unlike with Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, you have to run through this dungeon, but there's just no Pokemon here, which makes it feel a little empty, but of course it's something that's probably very hard to program, so I totally understand. So after climbing this insanely tall tower, we eventually arrive at Primal Dialga's feet. He thinks we're the one that disturbed time in this world and won't let me pass, because he will show no mercy against those who threaten the balance of time. Dialga is also more powerful than ever because he managed to find one of those fragments we're looking for, hence why he's in his primal state. And with that, he's absolutely ready for a fight, so let's see if we can take on Primal Dialga. Mewtwo, Mega Swampert, and Haxorus put in a lot of work, each getting off a hit while getting slaughtered by Roar of Time straight after. Then my trusty partner Pikachu was able to deliver the final blow with Brick Break. Once defeated, Dialga comes back to his senses as he thinks that the crystal corrupted him. He can also see that we are further deteriorating the space-time of this world, so in order to get me out of here as fast as possible, he hands me the fragment and we say our goodbyes to the Lord of Time. After arriving back on the ship with Everett, we relay everything that happened and he says, "Great job, let's just move on to the second crystal." So we get beamed into the second world, which leads into the game franchise with the best music in the world, Persona 5. One of my personal favorite games of all time. They've sponsored the channel a couple of times, which I'm incredibly proud of, by the way. But I was over the moon seeing that we teleported to Joker's universe. We immediately get greeted by this cat-like creature whose name is Morgana. He seems to recognize that we're not one of Kamoshida's grunts, Kamoshida being the bad guy in this universe. We tell him that we're looking for something here, but can't specifically say for what, and he then suggests that we join forces. That's when the main character, Mr. Joker, finally shows up. He can feel that I have a strong aura around me, so he's going to be fighting by our side against any guard that may cross our path. But how could I even defend myself? There's no Pokemon in the Persona universe. And well, here's the answer to our question. As we ambush a guard, we see that the regular enemies from the Persona series can in fact be fought together with Joker. He'll help you out with his powerhouse Arsene and heal you up after every single battle. So let these pesky Agathians, Bicorns, and Archangels come, cause they can't touch us anyway. Once most of the minions have been defeated, we meet back up with Skull, which is the third team member of the Phantom Thieves, all the way at Kamoshida's throne room. Unfortunately, he has just taken a big beating by the king himself, all because he was able to find the crystal that we need first. Just like with Primal Dialga, it has given him immense power and he's going to call for backup from his guard. So Joker offers himself up to take care of those while we take on Kamoshida himself. And even though we've just met, our trust in each other is sky high. So let's beat down this malicious king. Unfortunately, I don't know what a pink blob monster's typing is, but he did have some awesome moves like Floor Cannon and Spatial Rend. In the end, we just needed a couple hits from Venusaur and Charizard to take down his crown and grab our crystal. Unfortunately, straight after, the castle started collapsing and we all had to get out of there as fast as possible. Unfortunately, we couldn't say goodbye to each other, but I'll never forget the friends we made here. But at least Everett was able to get us out alive. We're wasting no time here at all as Everett sends us to the next dimension immediately after relaying all the events back to him. Only this universe seems to be very digital and numbery, which I honestly know nothing about because it's Mega Man. I only played like one Mega Man game back on the Game Boy Color and that's it, so I really have no idea what's going on here. We see this green looking guy that's called Mr. Prague who asks if we're a victim of the digital catastrophe too. He explains that he's just a program here in the digital universe and that he's supposed to be very helpful. But we're in a crisis because it seems that some of the people in the real world are materializing inside this network. That's when he shows up, Mega Man himself. He's talking to a guy named Lan. He just ended up here himself and doesn't know what happened either. But apparently all the people that are getting sent here are just from one specific spot in the city. Mr. Prague explains that Mega Man is basically the Navi of Lan, which means that he's kind of like the guide around this digital universe. Unfortunately, he can't materialize himself because there's been a ton of corruptions in the network which doesn't allow him to come out. Their communications are also down, so they can't call any of their friends, which means we're on our own for now. With nothing left to do, we end up exploring some more of this world. Unfortunately, we can get attacked in here by viruses as well as other enemy Navis. And the first couple we run into are Metower and Scuddiest, which I'm pretty sure are the regular enemies from Mega Man. After defeating the little guys, however, we run into these heel Navis, which are out to capture humans, and more importantly, Mega Man and Lan. So we have to defeat them with our favorite armored cannon shooting laser guy by our side. These guys were incredibly easy to deal with, and after the battle, our two friends here wonder how we can control many Navi at the same time, because that's normally not possible, so I guess I'll have to resort to using only one Pokemon so I don't blow my cover. Before we take out the robots, they tell us that we need a 7-digit code, and 2 of the numbers are 1 and 2. So we go around the internet defeating heel Navis until we get all the 7 digits, we find the little Grob guy and enter in all the numbers in the right order. This redirects us to a new page where we find new enemies as well as a portal that suddenly opens up and Elecman comes out, one of Mega Man's arch nemesis. He's clearly an electric type, so with my Swampert's Earthquakes we managed to defeat him swiftly and cleanly, but considering that they've already defeated Elecman in the past, this was quite surprising to our two heroes. And the same pattern keeps on appearing. Even later we run into an even stronger enemy named Greygar, which is this lion-looking thing, and he was incredibly hard to beat. I had to bust out the revives and full restores before we could eventually take him down, but he was basically able to one-shot almost everything on my side of the field. Once the coast was clear, we proceeded onward and found the core of all of these distortions. It's another wormhole, but this one won't close as easily. Just as we're about to destroy it, a guy named Bass comes out, or Bass. He's the guy that made this entire mess possible because he found the crystal that we're looking for. He's also obsessed with the program that's in Mega Man's code that he's trying to get his hands on, so he can open up portals everywhere in this world and bring down hell with all of Mega Man's biggest enemies. And that's what he brings out straight away, opening 5 portals right behind him and just before the enemies come out and attack us. 2 of Lan's friends, Show and Barrel, show up to help us out. They jump through portals themselves and are here with their Navis Proto Man and Colonel. And so we all attack at the same time. While I'll deal with Bass, the others deal with the wormholes, and Bass himself is really not all that strong as he substitutes around a lot like a big coward. In the end though, with the power of Swampert, Charizard, and Haxorus, we overpower him. Bass then notices that we're not from this universe and says that next time he's around, he's going to get that Mega Man program, as he teleports away and leaves behind the astral fragments. So we pick it up and this restabilizes the universe as we black out for a bit and wake up back in Everett's cruiser. I'm sure Mega Man will be okay, but unfortunately we weren't able to say goodbye once again. And even though we've gathered another fragment, there's still 3 more to go. And Everett is not sleeping until he has all of them, so he sends us back into another universe. This time we are getting pretty damn hot because we're entering one of the most nostalgic and iconic universes in the entire world, the Yu-Gi-Oh universe. But not just any place or time in the Yu-Gi-Oh universe, no, it's in ancient Egypt where Pharaoh Atem is currently at Rain. We check out the oasis first and see that everybody is prospering because of Atem. He's doing a great job as a pharaoh, keeping his people happy and making sure everything is in order. There's also a shop here where you can buy Nile potions, Egyptian tea, Nigella honey, and the cursed ring. So of course I bought it to maybe set free my inner Bakura. With the honey we picked up at the shop, we managed to seduce one of the guards into letting us into the castle, or should I say pyramid. But inside we were met with many guards that throw out monsters out of these cards, only they're not holograms like in the show. They can actually hurt you. Does that mean Kaiba and Yugi aren't acting when they're getting hit? I don't know anymore at this point, but after battling some of the most iconic normal monsters like La Jinn and Gaia the Fierce Knight, we eventually stumble upon Isis, one of the priests of the pharaoh who is meant to protect him. She doesn't see any ill intent in my soul, but still wants to test me before we can talk to the pharaoh. See, first she's going to send us further into the palace, the relic room, where there's all of these stone tablets that display some of the strongest creatures and gods that Yu-Gi-Oh has ever seen. And if we can somehow come on top against these beasts, then she'll see if we're really worthy of speaking to Pharaoh Atem. So we head over there, but we get interrupted by Shadi, a man who can immediately see that we're not from this universe. He also notices that there is an uneasy feeling around me, like we're always being watched by something bigger. He's never felt something like this in anyone. He says that he can read anybody's soul and that mine is indeed pure, but that purity could one day be corrupted if we manage to make the wrong choices along our path. So we better keep our heart clear as we head into the throne room and talk to these legendary tablets. And so we get the fight Joey Wheeler's Red Eyes Black Dragon, Kaiba's legendary Blue Eyes White Dragon, and my personal favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card, but also Zera that I don't know too much about, and Pegasus's Abomination Relinquished, and the last two, Curse of Dragon and Seiyaryu. Once those monsters go back to watching TikToks on their tablets, we go back to Isis and tell her our task is complete. But she needs to see for herself how strong we really are, so one more battle and then we can enter. So we slash up our Agido, Keldo, and Zolga, which finally grants me an audience with one of the most famous characters in all of history, President Obama, who has the best haircut you've ever seen. This place is so exclusive, however, that we can't even walk around ourselves. All his priests tell me what I can and can't do as they order me to take 3 steps forward. The pharaoh finally greets me and says that he's listening to any questions we might have. This is the first person I have so much respect for, so we tell him about the other universes, but Priest Seto doesn't believe anything about the mumbo-jumbo we're rambling about. He thinks we're disrespecting the pharaoh. Luckily, the other priests have our back, as Seto shouldn't be talking in front of the pharaoh like this. After a little bit more bickering, the pharaoh tells everybody to shut up and asks me for my name. After telling him my name is Red, he says, "Alright, Red, I believe your story, because I could tell you a story I experienced some time ago that no one here would have believed. Don't forget that a lie well told is truth to the one who wants to believe it. You'll be needing this fragment I found recently, won't you?" That's when Seto speaks out again and says,
"You can't give that stone to a stranger from nowhere. No, I can't allow it."
He then steps out of line in front of my face, and while all the other priests try to calm him down, he says,
"Quiet. I will not tolerate reproach from any of you. My mission, in addition to protecting the pharaoh, is to protect the kingdom of Egypt, and that's what I'm going to do now. Legendary gods of Egypt, answer my call. In the name of all the ancient pharaohs who came before, powerful god of destruction, awaken from your slumber and bring down your wrath on these sacred lands. I summon thee, Obelisk the Tormentor."
I throw out my Mewtwo against the almighty god, but he ends up fisting my DNA monster. So I throw out my Swamp Guy and Mega Evolve him to get as big of a fist as Obelisk himself, as we end up slaying the god with an avalanche. Seto can't believe it, he's actually lost. But the pharaoh answers with, "Fighting out of hatred won't do you any good, Seto, no matter how much power you wield." Seto apologizes and says,
"After this fight, I imagine this traveler is worthy of speaking to you, so I won't be interfering anymore."
The pharaoh realizes that after beating Obelisk the Tormentor, he has seen that I fight with pride, but most importantly, honor and dignity, so he could entrust me with this fragment without any problems. However, he wants to see one last duel, and my opponent will be the pharaoh pharaoh himself. This shocks all the priests in the room, as they never thought he would go through with something like that. But Seto tells everybody to respect the pharaoh's wishes. Get ready, because you're about to witness a duel that transcends the ages. He starts off by summoning his legendary Black Luster Soldier, which I almost freeze with 2 of my Mewtwo's Ice Beams. Unfortunately, they were not very effective, and I was locked in with choice specs, so I had to go down and bring in Zwiggo to Earthquake. The next summon, Dark Paladin, gets one-shot by an Earthquake as well. But his incredibly powerful Dark Magician of Chaos is too powerful for me with a Shadow Ball, so I thought my Haxorus was going to be able to deal with it, just like Blue Eyes would. Unfortunately for me, he uses 1,000 knives, which instantly destroys my Pokemon. Then I'm thinking my iconic Charizard might be able to do it. Unfortunately, he also bites the dust. So I have to bring out the Pokemon mascot to show why Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been by the sidelines all these years, as I take down this boy, as well as the iconic Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician. But then he starts to play unfair as he brings out a god in Slifer the Sky Dragon, who Dragon Ascends my little Pikachu, so I have one more option: revive my best Pokemon, my mascot, as I proceed to take down the ruler of the skies with Rock Slides. And with that, the legendary battle against Pharaoh Atem is done, and we have won the Duel of the Ages. However, it doesn't matter who loses, because we both put our entire soul into this battle, as he proceeds to hand me the crystal with all his respect. I humbly accept, and he leaves me with these parting words. Encounters are the fruit of destiny. You might just come across someone who can teach you 1,000 things that you will never forget. Good luck on your journey, Red. It's your move. And I'm not gonna lie, once we got transported back to Everett, I was a little sad. I wish I could stay in that universe forever, man, because there's so many childhood memories buried in the sand there. You know the routine by now, and the next world we get sent to is one that I know nothing about, like absolutely nothing. I only know this one character, named Sans. That's right, we're in Undertale, and this world seems a little bit too realistic to me, because I can't just enter somebody's house and go talk to them like I didn't just break in. But if you want to be a creep, you can overhear some of the townspeople's conversations. Eventually I stumble upon this big building, and after making my way through it, I enter this weird, dark kind of world. There's a furry little guy here with glasses and a green hat and a pink scarf. He says that we're in the world of darkness, and he's lost 2 of his friends named Chris and Susie. He introduces himself as Ralsei, and he considers himself the owner of this place. We ask if he's seen some kind of crystal around here, but he just answers with the lore of this entire place instead of giving me a firm answer.
You see, all these years, light and dark have lived in balance, which brings peace to the world. But if this harmony were to shatter, a terrible calamity would occur, and the sky will turn black with terror. The earth will draw her final breath, and then, at the final moment, 3 heroes would occur at the end of the world. A human, a monster, and a prince from the dark. Together, they will be able to seal the fountains and restore balance to the world.
And so that's where our tale ends, and Ralsei asks me if we want to help him search for the 2 other heroes so that they may save everybody. Considering we don't have a choice, I guess it's time for us to explore the world of darkness. Then a guy on a bicycle named Lancer comes along, who's supposedly the bad guy. And he won't allow us to touch the fountain because he has a flawless 2-step plan to stop me. And the first step is take us down, and the second step is we lose. Great plan. So in this battle against Lancer, he shows us that he's an absolute weakling who gets scourged by a Charizard's flamethrower. Once the battle's over, he tells me to stop it, bro. I'm almost out of fuel for my bike. He then flees with an almost empty gas tank, and Ralsei says that we have to get to the 2 other heroes before he does. So we start roaming around. And this world is very weird for somebody that knows nothing about it. I mean, there's literal chests here with nothing in it, like an actual item that's called nothing. Eventually, we run into Lancer again, and he has one more trick up his sleeve, and that's throw random enemies that are named Hathy at us. They seem to be healer types, but my Swampert was still out damaging them 2-1, so this was a pretty easy fight. After this, Lancer says some dumb stuff, and we get to move on and meet up with this weird looking character. This is the supposed Susie we were looking for all along. However, she doesn't know who we are at all and is pretty skeptical. Ralsei tries to calm her down, but in the end she ends up attacking me because I'm too quiet to her liking. liking. And while she might look like a little punk, I bet that axe hurts like hell. So we better take her out quickly. So we do a ton of damage with my Mega Swampert and end up killing her with my Mewtwo's Ice Beam. She did have Psycho Cut, which probably means she's a psychic type, and she was weak to Earthquake, so probably Rock or Steel Psychic. Once the battle's over, she finally calms down and we tell her that she just has to follow us to the fountain so she can get home, because she seems to be pretty lost herself. We asked if Chris isn't with her, but apparently they found themselves scattered when they fell inside the school's storage closet. What a weird way of getting here, but I guess everything in this world is weird. So we have to find Chris now before we can go to the fountain. Of course, once we get to traveling again, we get ambushed a couple of times and eventually hit up on a dead end. We're trying to debate where to go next when all of a sudden a voice from the darkness appeared and says,
"So the worms have decided to crawl out and play."
And then our greatest ever adversary appears, Rogue's Guard. I definitely butchered that name. He says,
"Thou may have clawed past all those others' conundrums, but now prepare thyself for the strongest puzzle of thou's life."
And his first question is,
"So what's red and smells like blue paint?"
which obviously is just red paint. He says,
"God damn it, how could you get that question right?"
and then disappears with a pathway appearing in his place. We walk forward a couple steps and see that there's a dimensional portal here. But just before reaching it, we have to solve another mind-breaking puzzle. 2 plus 2. Yeah, you already know what happens. We get it right and jump into the portal and end up at the fountain we were looking for. And the third hero, Chris, is here as well. He's as quiet as ever and basically doesn't speak. But Ralsei is becoming very suspicious because he has never seen a portal like that before and thinks that the events are not playing out as planned. So Ralsei now suspects that we come from one of these portals as well, and that's when Susie says that I'm the same as Chris. But the only thing that matters now is that we close this fountain. So we start stepping towards it, but then something happens. We hear a voice in the distance say,
"It's very interesting."
So at first Susie thinks it's the riddle guy again, but he comes up and says, "No, that's not me at all." And then the other voice says,
"It's me, the one who wants to test out his new powers that I got from another dimension."
And then, I don't know, this weird guy with wings and a colorful palette shows up out of nowhere and says that he wants Chris's soul, which means this must be an old enemy from him. He starts rambling on about things I know nothing about and then enters a battle with me, where we finally learn its name, Spamton Neo. I started out with my Mewtwo and hit a powerful Side Strike, but he then killed me with the move Stonks. My Haxorus then gets killed by a deal, and as I bring in Pikachu, he starts healing up with profit. I absolutely respect this man now, because he's just a businessman. He also takes out my Pikachu with a deal, then I can bring out Mega Swampert, hit Earthquake twice, and win. Like I'm the Wolf of Wall Street. He then disappears as his last words are,
"Watch me fly, mama."
He ends up dropping this strange stone, which turned out to be an Astra Fragment, which indicates that we just have to close the fountain and get out of here. So we say goodbye to all of our friends and end up back in that town. So we start roaming around and stumble upon this weird house that's built into a hill, which turns out to be Chris's house, who accompanied me back here. He says,
"Best regards, we seem to be the same, but only I can be a being that can travel between universes. Do you understand this? You know what I must do now, right?"
As he slices at me with a knife and instigates a battle. And this guy is incredibly strong, considering he's also a protagonist of a different game. He has the Moody ability, which means one of his stats will always get sharply raised and one will be lowered by one stage. So I start whittling him down with my Venusaur's Leech Seed, but we get taken out quickly with a Psycho Cut. So I bring in my Mega Swampert, but get one hit KO'd with a move called Genocide. I tried to stall him out with Revives, but eventually all my Pokemon went down and we lost our very first battle. Just when he's about to massacre me in cold blood, we hear a voice in the distance screaming, "Red, I'll get you out of there right now," as we get beamed up into Everett's cruiser, who saved us right at the final moment. He understood that we were in a very dire situation right there, but after telling him that our mission was in fact a success, he's ready to move on to the final world. Where will it send us this time? Well, I never would have guessed this. A middle school. We start looking around, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't recognize any of these characters or the scenery from other games. We eventually climb into the sewer system, which ends up at this old factory with a big-ass elevator inside. But it doesn't work unless you have a secret code, so we go back to Everett to ask if he knows anything about this. So he gives me a card that can basically get into any place at any time. We insert it and end up in this weird hideout. We see a guy staring at a computer screen with this weird orb next to him. His name is Jeremy, and when I saw that face, I immediately knew this was the universe of Code Lyoko, an old TV series that I used to watch from time to time about students entering a digital world or something. I don't know too much about it, but I guess we'll find out some more if we follow Jeremy's instructions. At first, he's very shocked and suspicious because we managed to find this place in the first place. His friend Odd, who's already in the digital world, asks where he's at, but that's when Jeremy has to explain that there is a visitor in the lab. One of their other friends, Alicia, thinks that I might be a clone for a company named Zaina, but Jeremy is positive that we have nothing to do with them. He sends them into the direction of the tower they have to take down, and we start talking and telling him that we're looking for a fragment of a stone. He then goes on to explain that this is what Zaina would actually do, lay out a trap to try and get to them, but we say that we have nothing to do with Zaina and don't even know who they are. So he goes on to explain that it's an artificial intelligence which, for reasons unknown to them, seeks to rule our world. That's when another terrible thing happens. The guys in the digital world are being overwhelmed by monsters at the tower, and something else with the supercomputer went wrong, so Jeremy can't access all their data anymore. Their friend Odd also got devirtualized but didn't end up back here, which means there's something else wrong too. So their last hope is me. They ask me if I want to save the world, and of course I do. So I go into the supercomputer and enter the digital world. After arriving there, we meet up with Alicia, and after some quick introductions, she explains to us that we need to find these towers and destroy them because it's inside of these towers that Xena can manifest in the real world. On the way over to the tower, there will be monsters, however, so we have to take them out. But with our Pokemon, this should be no problem. The first enemy we encounter is a Cancrelat, and if I remember it correctly, the enemies from this show were weird. The show was also sort of in 3D, but also 2D, so I remember the fight's not always looking too dandy. We end up taking it out, as well as the next two, Hornet and Block, but eventually we start running into harder enemies like Crab and Tarantula, who took a couple more hits before they would devirtualize. Eventually we reach the tower, but just when we're about to enter, their friend William comes out, but he seems to be corrupted by some sort of virus. It's being controlled by Zaina. We have to protect Alicia at all costs because she's the only one that can devirtualize the tower. So we start trading blows with the corrupted sword fighter, but the only real move he uses is Leaf Blade, as he manages to take down my Mewtwo and do some decent damage on my Haxorus. In the end, I do come out on top with an Earthquake, then devirtualizes as Alicia enters the tower and shuts it down. Upon coming back outside, she says that she found this weird gem fragment in the tower and hands it to me. It's the final astral fragment we need, and while they get devirtualized and sent back, I immediately teleport back to Everett, who's delighted to see that we finally found the final astral fragment. He then thanks me for completing our mission, but it's finally going to have to come to an end now. As our reward, we do get a shiny charm, which is always nice because we love to see things sparkle, but he's going to go back to his own universe to restore the Astra Stone. But he has a feeling that this is not a farewell at all, because whoever's behind all this may come into contact with us again sooner or later. Until then, he wants me to be on guard at all times, because the next time we see each other, it might be with a dimensional war. So we get sent back to our regular world and start exploring the Kanto region once again, because there are still wormholes that need to be closed. And we end up finding a portal that leads us to the Indigo Plateau. The weird thing is, the moment that we try to enter, we get ambushed by Silver, who says, "You're taking on the Pokemon League? I've never seen you around the dojo." Well, I can't let you take it on because it's my turn first, and I'm going to prove that I'm not a loser. Which he kind of is, because he has his regular Heart Gold and Soul Silver team, which gets absolutely walloped by Pikachu and Mewtwo. But it only gets weirder from here, because after we enter the first Elite Four member's room, we see that it's not a Johto Elite Four member at all, it's Sydney. So we show him the light by taking out his dark types and go to the second Elite Four member, which should be Phoebe. But upon entering, we see that it's the Alolan an Elite Four member, Kahili, with her flying types. So we end up taking out 6 birds with 1 stone and enter the 3rd chamber. Here we find the bug type specialist Aaron from the Sinnoh region. And after squashing his bugs, we end up in Will's room. And after showing him that it's brawls over brains, we should be ending up at the champion's room now. And I guess I'm right, because we end up in the Johto champion's room and see Lance, the Dragon Master. So we freeze all of his dragons with ice beams from Mewtwo, but it was pretty cool to see his red Gyarados. After taking the win though, I get this weird feeling that it's not over yet. So we enter into the next room and find the Stone Collector himself, Steven, with his trusty Metagross by his side. In Chapter 1 of Reunion, we have seen him many times, but he doesn't seem to remember our face at all, so he must be from a different universe. His fossils stood no chance against my Mega Swampert, and he tells me there's still more battles ahead. So we end up running into the second worst champion, Diantha. We give her no respect as we wipe out her team with one snap of Mewtwo's fingers. Considering we've already faced so many champions, I feel we aren't done here yet. Next up was Iris and her strong Haxorus, but she's basically a downgraded version from Lance, so we Ice Beam her too. Then the strongest champion of all, Cynthia, showed her face, but she forgot to equip the right berry on her Garchomp and also got frozen into a block of ice. We step towards the next room and feel this very strong presence coming from there. I guess that must have been Leon's Gigantamax Charizard, as he's getting ready to defend his title as champion once again. He throws on the worst attire you've ever seen, and I throw out my Mega Swampert to take down over half of his team. Eventually, his Gigantamax Charizard manages to pop my big muscles. Luckily for me, I have a Charizard of my own, and I don't need the power of Dynamax to take him out. Just one Rock Slide, and boom. Leon is no more. We step into the final door, as I think we only have to face ourselves considering we're the last champion, but no, we get sent back to the regular world and the wormhole disappears. Which means another mission accomplished, but we hear another sound of another wormhole opening up not too far from here. And without hesitation, our hero jumps in, as he meets up with his old friend Volo. He says that he didn't expect to see us here, but he does see a lot of himself inside of me. But then he says, "Did you really think you were the only one who knew about the space-time portals?" His demeanor changes as he says, "You remind me of this person I faced in another dimension. A trainer who at first glance looked like a simple beginner, and little by little strengthening his friendship and trust with his Pokemon. The latter may have stood in my way, just like we are now. But this time, thanks to our god Arceus, I was able to prepare myself fully." As he takes off his clothes and transforms into his real form. "What's the problem, Red? Are you scared? And yet you're the one who almost put me in check, collecting each and every plate. I found the bug plate when I realized I was missing some. And then you always appeared in the exact place where they were supposed to appear. He always knew where they were going to be because he has the legend plate, which can be used as a beacon to locate other plates in any universe. So even if he collects plates from several different universes, the result will remain the same. He will summon Arceus. But first he's going to have to teach me a lesson, because he refuses to let anyone else meet Arceus. And now he's going to show us the power you actually need to become God's emissary. And that's when our Pokeballs clash. Our Pikachu defeats his Spiritomb, but then he brings out Mega Garchomp. So we pivot into Charizard to do major damage with Air Slash, but ultimately Haxorus has to come in and kill it with Dragon Claw. He then brings out the almighty god of space, Primal Dialga, so our Zwig Jr. destroys it with Earthquake. Mewtwo proceeds to deal with Togekiss, Pikachu takes out the Horse Palkia, and Origin Form Giratina falls to Swampert once more. After losing, he screams out, "Impossible! I can't relive this failure, it's unimaginable! Even having borrowed the strength of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, I still couldn't defeat you." So he starts thinking that Arceus is not willing to give him his blessing, but then he says, "No, I can't think like this. There must be a dimension where no one will be able to stop me. I have to keep going. No matter how many times I have to start over, I'll get there eventually, and now that I have the power of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, I'm almost unstoppable. I can actually create a reality using their power. You're lucky, Red, because now you can witness the destruction of all the dimensions choose for yourself, and then the creator will have to come out of his divine lair to meet me. He gets ready to do it, but then this eerie feeling comes over the both of us as a voice says,
I didn't think you'd be able to go this far.
Volo looks at me and says, why do you look so serious, Red? So you too then. You've met her as well. And then she appears as she had already expected that I was going to be here too. Our hero. It's obviously the Scarlet Queen. She says that she's disappointed in Volo because they were both from divine blood, and although she was aware that their respective goals seemed to diverge, she was still curious to know how he planned to summon it. So Volo thinks that she's also from ancient Sinnoh, but she says,
No, my dear brother. After all, we all come from the same creator.
But Volo thinks he can now overpower the Scarlet Queen because of Giratina, Palkia, and Giratina, as well as the Legend Plate. Little did we know that the Legend Plate he got was given to him by the Scarlet Queen herself, and it's a fake artifact. But it doesn't matter because he still has the legendary trio as he sends them out and orders them to attack the Scarlet Queen. But for some reason, they're not obeying his orders. The Scarlet Queen says that she's actually older than Giratina, Palkia, and Dialga, and then sets them free as they ascend to their original places. Volo says, no, I can't fail like this again, but the Scarlet Queen just answers with,
You were meant to fail right from the start, because no one can escape my gaze. No one can avoid the destiny I'm writing with my own hands. My work here is now done. As for you, dear hero, we'll see each other again very soon, and then it will be your turn to understand this reality, as I am the only one who can be its savior.
That's when she disappears and Volo is still alive and kicking. He's not ready to give up yet, because as he walks away, he screams out, I will meet Arceus one day. And that's when we get sent back to our own reality as the portal closes forever. But that does mean we have once again cleared out a portal. So with that, another mission is accomplished. We go to the actual Pokemon League this time, where we meet up with Basil, who's been training with Blue. He was getting ready to take on the Pokemon League, but first we ask if he knows anything about Lilith. Unfortunately, his answer is no, and even Claire from the Johto gym, who used to be her mentor, doesn't know where she is at all. But he knows Lilith, and he's sure that she'll come back to us one day. But before all that, he wants a warm-up fight for the league, so let's give our buddy what he needs. He really thought he could win against me with a team of Pachirisu, Sceptile, Emboar, Tyrantrum, Heracross, and Mega Blastoise? And I'm saying hell nah, because he's going to need some real power if he wants to take on the current Kanto champion. After the battle, he thanks me because now he knows he needs to make a couple of adjustments to his team before challenging the league again, and as a reward he gives me 2 Maska potions, which makes me think about Masquerade and how we haven't ran into him for a while. Anyway, we have no time to think about that because we have some portals to take care of. So we jump into our next one and end up in Lily Cove City, obviously in an alternate timeline. We start talking to people to see if there's anything wrong in this universe, until we stumble upon a girl in the Pokemon Center who's talking about a beautiful girl who helped her out the other day because some grown-ups were harassing her, and she's usually next to the lighthouse. So we make our way over there and see a familiar face. It's our long-lost friend Lilith. Only she has changed quite a bit in appearance. Her hair is now shorter, but she was sure that no matter where she went, we'd be able to find her. She's very sorry about leaving out of nowhere, and also for being so weak when we all needed her. She knows we have lots of questions, but everything she felt on our last mission really changed something in her. And all along, she's actually kept a valuable piece of information about her from everybody except for Looker. You see, she was found here on this beach around Lilico City by Looker, which means she doesn't come from my world at all. And she actually had no memory of her past life until we returned from our final mission. But she didn't want to say anything to me or even Looker about getting her memories back. Then she asks if we remember that person that came to us on our last mission. And of course, how can we forget about the Scarlet Queen? She herself was too afraid to remember it, too afraid to accept it. But unfortunately, it is the reality. Something like that does exist. In that moment, when she appeared in front of us, she felt so powerless because her friend was right there, wounded before her eyes, and she couldn't do anything about it. That's when she felt real fear. And she knows that one day we will have to face her again, and if I or Basil die in front of her eyes, she doesn't know what she would do. So she came here to become stronger, to make sure she could stand up to the Scarlet Queen once that time came. So she crisscrossed regions, getting to know herself better, but the first thing on her mind was to reclaim her beloved Mawile. As giving up one of your Pokemon is one of the worst things you can do as a trainer, and she won't be able to live with herself if she doesn't get her back. She helped her through her darkest times, and now it's time that Lilith repays her kindness. So she asks me for one of the riskiest things we can do. When the time is right, will we go with her in search of her Mawile? Which, of course, we will, considering we're best friends. This could get us kicked off the D squad because we'll be dimensional traveling without Looker's permission, but in the end, it's the best thing we can do to try and get Lilith back on her feet. But in order to know that she won't drag us down no more, she needs me to battle her right here, right now, as this will mark the beginning of our oath to save Mawile. She starts the battle by saying,
Formerly, in the service of the King of Kalos, I, Lilith, challenges you to a final battle.
Which is kind of crazy to think about. She was in service of the King of Kalos all those years ago? Man, I can't wait to see how she buffed up her team, starting out with Lucario, who gets killed by Mewtwo, but not after her special ability activates, which is Second Wind, always healing up her Pokemon to full, but lowering their stats. Sadly enough, that means I won't be able to one-shot any Pokemon on her team, but I still take out Kingdra before Mewtwo gets taken out by Serperior. And just when I'm about to take it out with my Charizard Flamethrower, she swaps out into Gardevoir, who doesn't take it too well and gets scorched up the next turn. My Mega Swampert then proceeds to take out her Latias with an Avalanche, but Serperior just puts one little leaf on my Swampert and boom, he's out of here. Charizard then burns the snake, and the last Pokemon on her team is her powerful new Diancie, which is a perfect Pokemon for somebody that served under the King of Kalos. But of course, it stands no chance against my giant Grass Toad and its Giga Drain. And with that battle over, we finally erased all the doubts in her mind. Nothing can shake her determination from now on. That's when she gives in the coordinates from the universe we were in before to save Mawile, and that opens up a portal. Just before we're about to jump in, she shoves me aside and says,
You really do have a heart of gold. You would have been able to follow me to the end of the universe to make up for my own mistakes. I can't help but smile stupidly despite my tears. Red, you embody hope for a multitude of people even across the multiverse. I refuse to let you risk exposing yourself to further danger because of me. Tell Basil I'm sorry I won't be there for his league victory. And do me a favor, Red. Give my badge back to the boss, will you? And just so we're clear, Red, this isn't a goodbye because I promise I will succeed and come back. And know that whatever may happen in the future will always be linked beyond universes.
And that's when she jumps into the portal, and we get teleported back to our own universe. So the first thing we do is go back to Looker, who immediately recognizes that there's something wrong with me. After telling him Lilith's entire story and returning her badge, he finally understands everything. He would have expected this because in truth, he knew all along that Lilith wasn't from this dimension. But what he's most shocked about is the King AZ, which must mean that Lilith belongs to a time long in the past. And so Looker starts to think that maybe because of all this dimensional travel, it's starting to cause amnesia with me, Basil, and Lilith. But fortunately for us, we have not experienced anything like it. He doesn't think it's wise to pursue this Lilith thing and tells us to go prepare for the next battle because who knows what will show up. He does want me to go and investigate down at the Safari Zone because they're having some problems there and he doesn't really know what it's all about. Once we arrive in Fuchsia City, we head straight to Janine's gym. She remembers my face from when I destroyed Koga the first time around for his gym badge, and now she knows that we're here to challenge her as well. But before we can say we're actually here for the Safari Zone incident, she already battles me. So we throw out her Kryptonite, which is basically just Mewtwo with Scythe Strike, and wallop her entire team. Apparently she isn't even aware of any problems with the Safari Zone, so I guess we have to investigate ourselves. And of course, if there's problems going on, you know our old friend Ezekiel is going to be around. He basically hasn't stopped trying to build the best team in the world, as he's here to research all the new Pokemon Pokemon that have started to pop up in the Safari Zone, and he knew that we'd be here too to gather even more data. And because we gave him the D-Squad armband last time, he's basically getting past police checkpoints without any problems. And if we want to get into the Safari Zone, we better show him that we're worthy. On guard. He starts off with a Frostlass that has Sturdy and immediately raises its special defense by 6 stages. Not that that really matters though, because we take it out with a couple of Iron Tails straight after. His Camerupt then dies to my Swampert's Earthquake, but he has been learning because he now has a Swampert of his own that kills mine. So I bring in my Venusaur to try and kill it with a single Giga Drain, but it has Sap Sipper, meaning that this thing has no weaknesses and my Venusaur just gets taken out. Mewtwo is luckily still way too powerful for him as he takes it down, but his moody Slowpoke somehow gets the better of me. So my trusty pal Pikachu manages to overpower it, while Charizard deals with Licky Licky and Haxorus takes out that beautiful fire-type Feraligatr with Earthquake. He's surprised to see that we've once again leveled up our game, and he's going to let us go into the Safari Zone first while he goes and builds a new team. We get informed by one of the employees, Tim, who says that recently even more new and ferocious Pokemon have made their unexplained appearance inside this park. And they're so strong that normal trainers can't even seem to calm them down. That's why they called in the help of the D-Squad. Once we enter, we have to go zone by zone because each zone is going to have its own Pokemon that's more ferocious and powerful than the others, and we have to either catch that or take it out. And upon entering the Safari Zone, we see that a lot has changed because there's now 18 different areas, which means that each typing has its own boss Pokemon. So after chasing down the Slowkings, Tyrannitars, and Sylveons, we managed to calm all of them down and make the Safari Zone safe again. As a reward for completing this quest, we get a ton of great TMs, Megastones, and once again these weird Maska potions. A policeman then informs me that the chief just left a little while ago looking like he was bothered about something. So I decide to scour the region to look for Looker and see if he's alright. On this little road trip, I ran into many trainers that shouldn't be here, like Solana from Pokemon Ranger. She somehow had a team of her own despite always being a Pokemon Ranger, which are technically against catching Pokemon, which might explain why she was so easy to beat. Mustard is here as well, who seems to know that he's in a different region because he's never been here, although he's really enjoying the scenery and breeze of the sea. He is however wondering if his 2 disciples also managed to get here unscathed, and that if we manage to find them, we should send them back here. He didn't want to battle or anything, so I went back to searching for Looker, who eventually turned up at Bill's house. We go up to him, but he just says that he really needed to do some thinking here, as he knew this was Lilith's favorite spot. She came here often to watch the horizon when things weren't going well, and I guess he's now debating on whether he should have even asked us to go on this mission, because now we've lost Lilith, and maybe me and Basil could be next. But he also knows that we don't have amnesia, which must mean we remember what happened on that day where we saved the multiverse. He's seen it in our facial expressions. It's like we've been through a traumatic experience. And so he asked me one last time to tell him what really happened. After looking into his eyes and debating it for a little bit, we finally comply and tell him about the Scarlet Queen. And now he finally understands why we're so afraid, because back in the day, he too witnessed the death of his partner without being able to do anything about it. But it's at this precise moment that we need to redouble our courage, as that is how heroes are born. And now, because we've been honest with him, he's also going to explain what he's on about. He doesn't come from this dimension. Vincent was indeed right. In his dimension, he did hold a similar position to this one. He was a member of the section of the International Police Force, and during one of his missions, he got swept up into an ultra wormhole, sending him here. And ever since then, he's not been able to contact Annabelle, his superior, who must be worried sick. Considering it's been almost 2 years now, he's decided to make the best of it and found a chapter of the International Police Force here too. And the only thing that's keeping him fighting against Team Kronos and the Scarlet Queen is the thought that one day he'll return back home. And he's sure that if we stand up to this Scarlet Queen, we'll eventually run into Lilith again, so we're going to have to do some research now. And Basil doesn't need to know anything about it. That's when Looker gets an urgent call telling him to come back to the HQ right away, and we have to join him. After arriving there, he says that another member of the D-Squad called him up, but we don't know her yet. That's when she walks in and we are just shocked because it's Raven, the lady we fought back in Viridian Forest at the start of our journey, the leader of Team Karasu. We want to explain this to Looker, but she goes on to explain what's going on. You see, she was asked by Looker to bring back the legendary Pokemon to their respective regions so that everything would be back in order, but some of them were missing. So her and Team Karasu were searching the Team Chronos lair from top to bottom, and the one missing Pokemon was a Rayquaza, which means that must be the Rayquaza from the Hoenn region where we met Spectra in, as he snapped that one away out of existence so that Primal Kyogre and Groudon could rain havoc across that region, until we saved it, of course. But this also means that this is a timeline from the past. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about this because the transporter is way too delicate of a device and we don't really know how to use it, and on top of that, we also don't know the exact timeline we need to be in. So Looker sends Raven to the Hoenn region to try and gather some information there, and he tells me to just try and gather information on Rayquaza itself. There's not much more we can do here, and after he sends Raven away, he explains why she joined the D Squad. Apparently, somewhere at the start of the D Squad, Basil and Lilith were shocked by Raven's fighting skills because they had to take down her and Team Karasu, and so Looker was able to strike a deal with her where she would join the D Squad with all of her strength. Anyway, it doesn't matter now because she's doing a good job, and Looker is going to start looking into that Scarlet Queen nonsense. So we head outside and get a call from Evereth. He needs to speak to me about some urgent matters, so he tells me to come to his cruiser, who's once again parked in front of Bill's house. So we head over there and meet up with him. So basically, he's successfully restored the Astra Stone, but he needs to be able to test it. That's why he wants me to join him on another little trip to another universe. But before we already start sighing, it's not going to be some unknown universe. It's going to be one we're already familiar with. So we tell him about the Rayquaza situation and that we actually really have to go back to that Hoenn region to try and save it, because there might be a meteorite heading there, and without a Rayquaza to protect its region, it might all just go up into flames. Luckily, Everett is great at locating a single dimension, and with the dimensional transporter we gave him last time, he was able to see where that grunt we took it from traveled to, which means it must be the Alpha Dimension Hoenn Sky Pillar destination. So I think we have a deal here. We test this Astral Stone and we get sent into the dimension we need to be at. Unfortunately, if you want to see how today's events unfold in the Hoenn region, you're going to have to join me in part 3 of Pokemon Reunion, coming to a YouTube channel near you very soon.